YouTube, and welcome back to my kitchen. We're gearing up for some cold weather coming up, and I want to have some beef stew already ready so we can just heat it up for leftovers. So tonight we're going to be making beef stew. I'm going to start by preparing the meat, and I'm going to salt and pepper both sides. Be really generous with it because we want a nice crust on the outside. Next, we'll cut it into cubes, and if I had the choice of meat, I would have chosen a chuck roast, but unfortunately my store was running low on different cuts of beef, so I think what I got is a flank steak. I'll add that first batch of meat to my already hot pot with some oil in it and dice up my second steak. We're going to brown the meat on all sides, and you'll want a nice Maillard reaction on the meat and the brown bits called fond to stick to the bottom. Then we're going to chop up our vegetables. I'm starting with carrots first. I dropped a few carrots for Chief, so Ian's making sure Uzi gets his carrots. Next, I'll chop a couple of onions, and this actually, I won't chop them very finely. I'm just going to leave them really big because I don't want them to totally break down in the stew. Onions are probably my favorite part, so I want them nice and big so they add a little bit of texture. You may have noticed a little bit of mold on the end of this first onion, and no biggie, I just cut that part off and used what was good. I bought these onions on December 31st, so I'd say they've lasted pretty well. Alright, so I've gotten all my meat taken out of the pot. I've maybe drained a little bit of the fat, but I've left some in there. There's also a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of the pot that I cooked the meat in, and now I'm adding my veggies, the carrots and the onions that I just cut up. And this pan's still pretty hot. I want to get a little bit of browning on these veggies before they soften up, and you can see I'm scraping down the bottom of the pot. Here is the fond I mentioned earlier. You can see it there stuck to the bottom of the pot. That's exactly what we want. Next, I will chop up my garlic because you know how I am about not overcooking my garlic. I want to make sure I add this at the very end so it just sautés for maybe 30 seconds or a minute before I add the liquid or anything else that'll be cooling off the rest of the dish. And I've just reached for a bottle of port. I'm going to just give it a little splash to deglaze the pan on the bottom. If you don't drink alcohol or don't cook with alcohol, don't keep it in your house, you can skip this step, but alcohol is a solvent and it really helps to scrape the fond off and develop a really nice rich flavor. I've switched utensils to something with a flat bottom so I can more easily scrape the bottom of the pot. Next, we're going to make a slurry with water and some flour, or you can use cornstarch if you're gluten-free. This is going to act as a thickener for our stew. Now it's time to add the bulk of our liquid. I'm going to add 6 cups of water, and I will add about 1.5 tablespoons of beef bouillon. I'm adding my beef back into the pot, and then I will cover it and simmer until we're ready to add our next vegetables. I will go ahead and add some salt and pepper to the stew. I'm also adding some frozen peas and green beans for a little bit of green. And then I'm going to dice up some potatoes. No, I'm not going to bother peeling the potatoes. I hardly ever peel potatoes. In fact, I think I've only peeled potatoes once for my husband and I. It was pretty recently because my potatoes had a lot of eyes and I was making potatoes au gratin, so they needed to be peeled, but anytime I make mashed potatoes or put potatoes in stew, they have their skins. One thing I forgot to add to the stew that I really missed whenever we were eating it was diced tomatoes. Alright, I'm going to bring everything up to a simmer again, give it a big stir. I want to cover this and cook it until the potatoes are fork tender. Then, when the soup is almost ready, I will add my aromatics. So this is rosemary and sage. Here's a shot of the final product. I hope you like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys!